This is episode 67 of the Cafe Racer podcast for November 22nd, 2014. I'm Steven.
I'm Crash.
That wasn't too bad, actually.
No, it was definitely better than my last one.
And I think that weird noise I was hearing is coming from my headphone jack. So.
Oh, that's always good.
Sounds like little demons trying to talk to me.
Oh, maybe that's not your headphone jack, but actually inside your head. Who knows?
Could be, actually.
So how's it going?
I'm doing all right. I've been doing honeydew chores, but you just got back from an exciting trip, didn't you? You were in paradise somewhere, right?
Exciting isn't necessarily the word I would use for it, but it was a trip, and it was a tropical, touristy place. I went to Guam. But
see, I didn't know that Guam was like kind of a tourist place.
You know, I didn't really either. I'd heard that it was, but like I guess because it's so close to Japan, it's a common place for like Japanese tourists to go. It's only like a 3-hour flight, so I'll go there and hang out. I mean, honestly, I didn't really know where Guam was on the world. I knew that it existed and people went there, but I hadn't really looked for it on a map in a long time. So it wasn't until I went out there that I was like, oh, okay.
One of the guys I used to work with was in the Air Force, and his wife is from Guam.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he was actually stationed over there or not. I knew they were stationed in like the Tampa area, but when they go there, like he says that no one that lives there has air conditioning. It's kind of pretty brutal in the summertime.
Yeah, it's pretty like when you're not in the touristy area, it's pretty low tech, you know.
So what's in the touristy area?
There's the beaches. There's, resorts. There's super expensive shopping areas. Just kind of typical beach town resort area.
Yeah. And so you were like hanging out on the beach with a Mai Tai and somebody with a fan fanning you the whole time you were there? Working out your fan?
No, I actually never went on the beach, and I kind of regret that. It was sort of like I didn't really have that many people I wanted to. I had people I wanted to hang out with, but they were always working when I wanted to hang out with them because we weren't there over a weekend. We flew out, so they're like 18 hours ahead of me in California. So when we flew out there, we flew out on like 6 in the morning on Friday morning and got there at 6 at night on Saturday.
Mm.
So, we lost like a whole day, and then our sleep was all messed up. So like Sunday was kind of a wash. And then we went to work Monday, and really I only worked like Monday and Tuesday all day, and then Wednesday I had a pretty low-key, like I worked for like an hour or two. But me and the other 3 people I was with didn't really hang out with each other very much, and the people that I did want to hang out with were working until the evening. So
what did you went there to go like inspect the helicopter or something, right?
Yeah, so they were transferring an aircraft to us, and we have to inspect it before they do. So we did all that. There's like this process of verifying serial numbers on components and stuff like that to make sure that they're not doing anything shady to you before they give it to you.
The Navy doing something shady to the Navy. Hey, so did you happen to get on 2 wheels when you were there at all? Did you rent a bike or borrow a bike or a scooter? No.
No, my friend Johnny though has a Grom, and I'm so jealous. Like I didn't have a chance to like get on it. I really wanted to. But the best part about this dude is he's like 6'5".
Right.
And so I saw him ride to work one day. I was like, you look like a bear on a tricycle, man. Like he's just like hulking over this little Grom.
People tell me they're fun. I can't get into the idea of riding something that tiny.
He loves it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I found a couple things online while you were gone, and I got really excited about 2 of them.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about is during EICMA,
mm-hmm.
Moto Guzzi released a kit, a scrambler kit for the V7.
Yeah,
Did you see that?
I did.
There's some. I'm gonna put some pictures up on the on our website, but there's some really cool photos of this thing, and it looks pretty neat. Some of the prices I'm seeing, there was, and I read about 3 or 4 articles from some of the writers that went to EICMA, and every one of them were trashing it. And they were not trashing it because it was not trashing the components of the kit or the cost. They were just trashing it like, oh, another wannabe scrambler. Almost.
Yeah. I don't know that I like agree with that sentiment at all.
I don't know. I think it transforms the V7, makes it look really cool, especially like the Stone or the Classic, one of the base model ones. But I saw one place where it was like 3,000 Australian for the kit, then 1,900 euros on another one. So I'm thinking here in the U.S. I don't know if you see any prices yet. The funny thing is I didn't look far enough to see if there's a distributor that's going to be carrying it in the United States, because I know that when that fairing came out for the V7 Racer, that nobody seemed to have them here. Now you can get them, and I think they're like $1,100. But I don't know about this kit if it's going to take longer. It's just the components look nice, you know. It makes the bike look really cool.
Yeah, I think it does too. I mean, there's always going to be people that are like, well, it's still not a real dirt bike, and I don't think anybody expects it to be a real dirt bike. It just
no. Neither is the Scrambler or the Triumph cells.
Oh goodness, no.
Right.
And neither was the Honda 305 Scrambler. Like, that wasn't a real dirt bike either.
No, and the way, you know, the technology that goes into a dirt bike nowadays, they're really purpose built. So, yeah, I kind of. Well, we'll talk about that in a second. I wrote a little article on our site about there was another kind of article that was penned by a guy from Auto Evolution, and there's a mock-up of what the Buell 1190AX is supposed to look like. And it's kind of cool looking, but one of the things that the term that they used in this article was sport adventure or adventure sport. I can't remember which one it was. It was something I'd never heard before. Now, maybe I'm late to the game and they've been throwing this term around for a while. But
I don't know.
I don't know. Have you ever heard that?
Not really, but it makes sense. I mean, this is definitely that similar, like, multi-strata style.
Right. So there's like, you know, in that whole sport touring genre of motorcycles, it's now like there was, you know, sport tour and adventure tour, and now there's all these things in between that. So you've got, and really on the far side of the spectrum for sport tour, you've got super sport touring, which
like the ZX14 with the bags on it, or
Hayabusa with bags on it, you know.
Yeah.
And you've got like the tameness levels. Then you've got like the Z1000 or the Ninja 1000. Moving down that spectrum until you get to the midpoint, which would probably be this sport adventure.
Yeah, I mean, because you've got that, like, the middle of sport touring, which is like an ST1300, and then progressively more upright and taller suspension until you get to the multistrada, the AX. So yeah, it's like this full-on like gradient now.
Right. And then past that, you got adventure bikes that, you know, aren't dirt bikes either. So
no, and you know, I mean, honestly, it's like they're filling in every possible little gap in adventure, in motorcycles in general. Like if you picked, you know, full on like dirt bikes and trials bikes on one end, and then you put, you know, like cruiser, you know, like super low fat Harley on the other end, and then you like filled in a couple of spots for like adventure bike and sport bike, and then you could just start plugging in bikes. You have this full spectrum of like from laid back, you know, way feet out in front of you kind of ergos, all the way up to like cramped sporty ergos and racetrack readiness, all the way over to dirt bikes. With
you remember that video that was on YouTube for a while, the evolution of dance? Where some goofy guys like doing these dances all through time.
Yeah.
But kind of, you could have the same thing with the motorcycle, where the guys, you know, leaned over the guy on the tank riding at Bonneville to the point where like moving back, and then pretty soon you're on a chopper where you're
like laying back.
Right.
laying on your back completely.
Exactly. Anyway, it just got me thinking about this new class that they've coined here, and I don't know how long this is going to actually stick, if it does or not. But so it made me wonder why those bikes are appealing, and it's just that the ergos are really nice for long day and for commuting.
Yeah.
But here the bags are, so when they go from having these like multi-stratus bags that are have that shape that kind of matches the lines of the bike where they're sort of small.
Yeah, they're really form-fitting and.
Yeah, and that's the way they look on the new Kappa Nord and the MV. So now you've got this mock-up of the AX with some just big aluminum bags on the back, and I kind of like the way that looks. I think it's cool. Now you can like put a camera case in there or a suitcase that's a liner that's made to fit that bag.
Right.
You just carry more stuff in it. And then on top of all that, you have the horsepower. So if they follow suit like they did with the SX to, the RX to SX, and they didn't neuter the bike and didn't detune it and kept it at 185 horsepower, this thing's going to be a screamer.
Yeah, for sure.
And that, for me, that kind of like, I heard Chris Hornberger use a phrase the other day, something, it ticks all the right boxes.
Yeah.
The only thing that's missing in that equation is the drive system on there. And
is it still a chain?
It's a chain, and I think it's probably going to stay a chain. Honestly, I don't see EBR going to a belt, and I certainly don't see them doing a shaft. They just don't have it made in any other bike. But I'd actually, as much as I bitch and complain about chain, I may even consider that, because now it would have to have EBS. And from what I understand, reading back in the specs, the SX nor the RX had ABS. So for me, it's got to have ABS.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine they wouldn't come out with some flavor of a touring bike that didn't have it, but I could be wrong. I don't know. I think that I'm starting to like that category more and more as I get older, and maybe doing less and less off-road riding. Although, if they bring it out with a 19-inch front wheel, it would be even better. And keep it.
So, is this picture like a mock-up?
It's a mock-up. It's a Photoshop job that they did. Yeah, it's not real. But I think that I like the way that looks. I mean, they even put like an existing Vario windshield on there.
Yeah.
Just to kind of show you what could be done with it. But the seat would probably have to be changed. They have the same seat from the SX on it.
Right.
Probably put something a little bit, more comfortable, more conducive to having a passenger on there. But it's kind of cool. I like the lines. I like whoever did that mock-up. I think it's neat.
Yeah, and it's well done.
Hopefully they'll make something like that. The article says you're not going to see it in 2015. He's quoting somebody from EBR, so we'll have to wait.
Yeah.
No, I kind of it was a little text thread that you read late when you got back, right?
It's strange. So in Guam, you think, like, on the one hand, you're like, oh, well, it's an American territory, so I should be able to use my phone. I got there, and fortunately I'd asked my friend that lives there, and she was like, yeah, you can use it, but it counts as, like, out of the country. So even though they use the same kind of, like, Verizon's network works there, which is different than if you don't have, like, an international Verizon phone in, say, Europe, because they use a totally different kind of network. So he's like, yeah, your phone will work, but it's going to cost you a lot. So you might just want to either like think about buying a SIM card, or like if you can find, if she's like, if I have an extra phone, if I dig up an extra phone, you can just borrow that, or whatever. And so I ended up just turning my phone on airplane mode and then turning Wi-Fi back on, because almost everywhere we were, except for when I was actually at work, had Wi-Fi. But that meant that when I got back, my phone sat there giving me text notifications for about 2 minutes straight, just one after another after another.
Why don't you get the text on Wi-Fi?
Because texts are sent via the same like if you think of it as almost like two different lines, you've got your voice line and then your data line.
Mm-hmm.
Texts are sent via the voice line. So with my cell radio, like the cell service radio turned off, it won't get the texts, but I won't get dinged for 20 cents a text either. So
It's like unless it's like iMessage, which just uses data, right?
right, iMessage uses data when it's sending to another person's.
It's using iMessage, right?
Yeah, and so we used Facebook Messenger to keep in touch with each other pretty well, and then me and the other 3 people that I was with used a message app called Viber, which it's a weird name, but there's Viber, WhatsApp, Kakao Talk. Like there's a whole bunch of different apps that all just are basically messaging apps that use your data connection.
Right.
Yeah, so I got a crap ton of messages, but for some reason they wouldn't load, so I never actually got to see the conversation.
So really what just happened is I kind of shot James and Chuck a text showing them that article, and
yeah.
James' comment was, don't wait, buy the SX now.
Mm-hmm.
Put a windshield on it in bags and use it for a year, because this thing may or may not ever come out, and if it does, at least you'll have the bike for a while.
Yeah.
And I kind of said I'm just not ready to give up the Stelvio. I like it too much, so maybe I'll just keep the Stelvio, keep putting miles on it, maybe pay it off, and then see if they actually do build the AX, and if they don't, maybe what I'll end up doing is getting something, maybe getting an RX, but we'll see. I'm going to keep waiting and keep watching, and I tried to contact them to see if there's any more news about it, and see what happens. But
yeah.
I don't know. Like I said, I kind of like that whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that's a cool. I mean, like, there's kind of like jet lag is really causing my brain to do weird things today. The Ulysses was a really cool, sort of similar idea, and I like the idea of them doing the same kind of thing with this new engine.
Did you ever ride one of those?
Mm-mm.
I went and sat on one at the dealership. I wanted to try to do a demo ride on one, but I couldn't. And it seemed like the wheelbase was really super, super shorter than the SX, but I could be wrong. It just seemed it seemed a little uncomfortable.
I did ride a Lightning once and didn't really like it, but I got off my speed triple and onto a Lightning like immediately and did not really find it all that entertaining.
The one, and I like the Lightnings. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was just because of the how high the Ulysses was, and I felt weird on it. On like the SX on a bike has normal suspension travels, kind of the distance from the ground to the seat. Maybe that's what it was. I don't know. I couldn't put my finger on it. But sitting on the Ulysses in the dealership, I just like, I don't know. I'm not really digging this. I didn't take it for a ride. I think the other thing that got into my head about the Ulysses is there was a bunch of negative internet chatter about it.
Yeah.
Like the turning radius, lock to lock, all these other problems that it was having, and I just it turned me off to it.
Yeah, if you'd known Chuck at the time, you'd have had all of his experience with his exploding too, and catching on fire.
Yeah, I kind of heard a little bit about that when we were in Orlando, but it doesn't make him any less of a fan.
Chuck live that down. Todd refuses to let Chuck live that down.
I tell you the truth, though, that must have been not the worst part of he doesn't seem to not be a fan,
Oh no, Chuck has another Ulysses, I think. Yeah. I mean, he liked the bike overall.
Well, I like the company now, and I like what they're making, and I was impressed by it. And I don't want to keep, like talking about it like I'm an EBR fanboy right now. It's just that I'm hoping that they build this AX. They add it into this growing segment of whatever you want to call them, adventure sport, sport adventure, something that's going to be, in my mind, more affordable than the Multistrada. Now, the Capo Nord, I think, is the same price as what the Stelvio cost me. I think you can buy a Capo Nord for around $14,900, but and I don't know. Maybe the AX will be a lot more money. Maybe it'll be priced closer to $18,000, but we'll see. Anyway, so the other thing, not that we keep beating this, something that got me thinking the other day. And when we were looking at helmets, and when I was at AIM and I was looking at all the helmet manufacturers there, and spoke to the people from Cali Protectives and a couple other companies and Nutcase, and I started thinking about the purchase that I made right before the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride, and how that might have been really kind of stupid. And then looking at what a lot of people that ride cafes and vintage bikes do for helmets.
Okay.
You know where I'm going with this?
I think like buying a like used helmet.
Yeah, that's what I did. I bought a KBR from a secondhand shop that looked like it was new, but for all I know, that helmet could have been sitting around for 6 or 7 years in a box somewhere or on somebody's shelf.
But what bad would have happened to it in that 6 or 7 years sitting in a box?
Maybe nothing, honestly. But if you listen to the manufacturers, they talk about a 5-year shelf life on a helmet because of the EPS, the foam in there breaking down after a time. I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't really researched it to look into that to find out. But I can tell you that the helmet looked brand new, and when I got back from the ride, all of the lining, the plastic molding around the outside of the helmet was coming off.
Yeah.
So that in and of itself is the glue had dried out over time.
Yeah.
Back here on the shelf, there's an Arai Quantum sitting up there.
Yeah.
That helmet looks brand new from the outside. It's never been down in an accident, but it's starting to literally fall apart on the inside. The glue's drying, the liner's coming out of it. That was back in the day. That helmet is probably from 2001, the end of 2001. I bought that helmet with the V-Strom, November of 2001. So, it's old. And they don't last forever. So some of these guys are buying vintage helmets that are far older than that.
Right. I don't know. Like I know the glue is going to dry out. I wonder about the actual protective value of the expanded polystyrene foam liner.
Well, and then here's the other thing you've got to kind of take into consideration: the technology changing over that time period.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I definitely like the idea of a new helmet. I don't own a vintage helmet, but my buddy has a vintage full face helmet, and I kind of wonder, like, is his vintage full face helmet really any less protective than my Bell 500?
I would venture to say, yeah, it is. And I'm not trying to shill for the manufacturers and their 5-year shelf life, because I think a lot of that is there because attorneys want to protect them.
That, and I mean, not just attorneys, but I have a hard time. I'm not saying I absolutely don't believe them, but I have a harder time believing them because they're motivated to sell helmets.
It's possible.
Like, they have it. They have a drive to sell more helmets. So if they get me convinced, I mean, it's sort of conspiratorial. I get that. Just like, the people that are like, oh, you shouldn't change your oil every 2,000 miles. That's just an auto manufacturer thing, and I'm like, or an auto oil industry thing. Like, they're depending on the vehicle. I tend to agree that you don't really need to do that, but it's just kind of like they're motivated to sell me a helmet. Anything that's going to make me buy a helmet sooner is going to benefit them. So I kind of take that with a grain of salt.
So is there something you feel comfortable with about deciding when you're going to replace the helmet?
Generally, I've just replaced the helmet when it doesn't, because like as I wear them, like as you wear the helmet, it starts to get looser and looser.
Right.
Because the stuff gets squished inside. Like once it starts to not fit quite right anymore, then I buy another one, which is usually 3 to 5 years because of how regularly I ride.
So maybe there's something to the fact that there is a breakdown in the material, and maybe that they're on the right track. I can tell you that.
Yeah, they could absolutely be 100% true.
There's a modular helmet I have that's literally starting to not work, and you know what I'm saying? It's just for so much use of cranking it up and down, the visor doesn't stay up anymore. It's starting to get creaky so now it's got me thinking this thing's probably not safe. If it's making these noises and sounding weird and not, staying up in position, things are wearing out on it. So I'm kind of thinking now, if you want a helmet that looks like a retro helmet, there's plenty of new helmets out there that look like retro
Yeah,
helmets.
definitely.
Yeah, a Bell, a Biltwell, I mean, a Torque, that you can go on and on and on and get some sort of, whether it's a flat color or something that's got graphics on it or no graphics on it, or metal flake or no metal flake. They're out there, so I
Or
just
full face or open.
yeah, and the thing is too, like even from a company like Built, where one of the guys who went on the ride with me had went and got an open face helmet from Built for $29. Now I paid more than that for that used KBR.
Yeah, Built's the Cycle World or Cycle Gear.
It's
Sorry,
their house
brand, right?
brand, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's probably made by, I don't know, I'm trying to bring somebody on here on the show, and I'm getting some text saying that I can't, but let me just try one more time.
Okay. Yeah, it's probably made by one of the, various Chinese companies that makes helmets. It might, probably made side by side in the same factory as some of the more popular, well-respected brands. But I don't necessarily automatically have a problem with Built helmets just because it says that on the side of it either.
Mm-hmm.
Like if the way I see it, like wearing a helmet is the first step. So if you got a helmet on, that's better than nothing, even if it's not particularly a great one. And then buy the helmet you're gonna wear, like that you'll be okay, that you're okay with wearing. My Bell 500 is not the most protective of helmets, but it's better than nothing. And every now and then I'll break it out and wear it because I want to look cooler than I might feel like I look, or at least I want to look more appropriately styled than in my laser flip face sport touring helmet with mounted intercom and helmet and camera mount and all this other random junk I've got on it.
Well, that's kind of why I didn't wear the AGV to the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride, because it's a modern sport bike helmet, and you're trying to like get into the flavor of the thing. So I really wanted, I didn't want to order. I should have went to Cycle Gear and grabbed one of the Bills, but I happened to see this thing that looked brand new, and it was red and had the little short visor on the front, and I'm like, hey man, that's cool. The guy only wants like $39 for it. So, or maybe more. I think I paid $49 for it, and it looked brand new. And then I started realizing when I got home, this company's been out of business for a while, so it's not new.
Right.
It's probably a few years old. And then when I got back from the ride, and then the other issue was it significantly loosened up on the ride. So that lends me to believe that the foam was dried out on the inside. Not necessarily the actual protective foam, but the padded. It was like wobbling all over my head.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think we got a guest with us.
What's up, fellas? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you. So we've got Brendan Dumas on with us, and he's the president of Cafe Moto in Orlando. And right now his webcam's not working. So
that's okay. The photo is actually pretty good. Like my basic photo is crap. That looks way better.
It's you and your wife, Brendan.
Yeah, I figured I had tried to change it just me, but it didn't work. So
that's okay.
Wait, you see him and his wife when he talks?
Yeah. What do you see?
I see a different picture. It's like kind of like he's turned sideways a little bit, looking forward, but there's nobody else in the picture. There's like a stone, like a concrete wall behind him.
Yeah, that's the one I tried to change it to.
That's
whatever.
really weird because I see.
They both work, I guess.
Yeah. So we're going to take a break from here. I'm going to get your take on this, Brendan, because and Cafe Moto is a self-described club by you as the Mutt Club, right?
Well, we call it the Motley Crew.
The Motley Crew, right?
Mutt is kind of trashy. Come on, Steven. Give us at least a little bit of an edge. You know what I mean?
Okay, Motley Crew.
How do you spell crew?
An 80s rock band. I think it's spelled C-R-E-U, right? With the two little dots on the top of the U.
Sure.
Anyway, what we were discussing before you came on, and there's a lot of guys in Cafe Moto that have custom cafe bikes, some vintage bikes. There's guys riding dual sports, and there's a little bit of everything there, right?
Correct.
And and I know I've hung with the guys at the last revival, and I know that's kind of like a mixed crowd. But how do you feel about if you wanted to look a certain way, achieve buying a new helmet, buying an older vintage helmet, and using that?
Can you just ask that one more time? I think we lost somebody, and someone got lost or something.
Yeah, Crash got dumped out of there for some reason. I don't know, but
here he's back again. Can you ask me that one more time?
So here's where this came is when we did the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride down here. I went and I bought a used helmet, a vintage. Well, I wouldn't even say vintage, maybe 5 or 6, maybe a little bit older helmet. That by the end of the ride started to come apart on me. It looked brand new when I got it, but the molding was coming off and the foam on the inside was probably dry rotted. It was the helmet got like 1 or 2 sizes bigger by the end of the ride. My question is how do you feel about, let's say that you're in some old pawn shop or an antique store and you see this really cool vintage motorcycle helmet. Would you buy that and use it as your helmet because it looked good for the bike you had, or do you feel it's more important to go buy something that's new?
Well, first, I'll give you the wonderful analogy that I like to tell everyone. My wife likes to yell at me about how much money I've spent on my motorcycle, and it's not because of the things that I have bought that were expensive. It's because the things that I didn't buy that were expensive the first time and instead went the cheap route multiple times over and over and have spent triple because it's broken or fallen apart. There's a story, we'll get into this some other time, of me losing an entire handlebar on a ride and trying to use duct tape and a scooter handle from a nearby shop. Anyway, because I bought cheap Chinese clip-ons. Now, when we talk about your head, I think that's even more important to protect. And so I'm going to go with the safety first rule on this. At the end of the day, let's face it, we all want to look cool on our motorcycle, and we build cool bikes to try to stand out. But the reality of it is that you're going to end up putting yourself in more harm's way because of what you think is cool. And I'll just be honest with you, man. I'm a big Bell guy. Bell Custom 500, the new Bell Bullet. I would rock that helmet any day over something that came out of a pawn shop and cost, a third of it. And I know it is more expensive, but you probably have 6 helmets, whereas I have one really good one. You know what I mean? That goes with everything, and I'm okay with that.
And that's the point I was trying to make. And the experience that I had where I bought this secondhand shop helmet where I paid probably $45, I think now, thinking back for it. I could have went to Cycle Gear and bought a brand new built. Now, is built the lower end helmet? Yeah, but it's new, so that it would have fit right. The EPS would have been in good shape. The foam would have been in good shape. It wouldn't have fallen apart on the ride. And I completely agree with you that there are plenty of options out there in every price range, whether it's from Bell or it's from Biltwell or it's from a company like Ruby where you're going to spend $1,400 for the helmet. They're all going to meet most of the same standards for protection. And to me, there's no reason to go and buy, having a vintage bike is one thing, but then to go and buy a vintage helmet as well, or buying some used helmet and then, I'm going to make this thing look cool and spray paint it and all that crap. Hell, just go buy a brand new flat black helmet from somebody else and do the same thing. I'm
not gonna lie. I've been looking for a vintage Bell. Was it a Moto 3? The Vin Moto 3, like the old dirt bike helmets. You can find them on eBay, and there are guys out there that actually refurbish them, where they'll go in and completely redo the inside, and they're basically like a brand new helmet. But then you're gonna end up spending the same as what you spend on a Bell Bullet or something.
Right.
And for me, I just made the judgment call of saying, you know what, I'm just going to stick with something new, especially for head protection. like a vintage jacket. I have a really cool vintage jacket that I found online, and that's leather. I mean, leather's leather, and padding's padding. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, and there's a lot of options out there if you really want to go the route of having full armor underneath a vintage jacket. So there's, a dozen companies out there producing armor carriers so that you can wear a nice leather bomber jacket. If you still really had to have that, the shoulder and all that D3O and stuff underneath there, you can do that. As a matter of fact, right when we were at AIM, right down from where we were at, there was a company there that has pioneered some new type of technology for armor and for abrasion resistance too as well. So you could literally wear some cheap members-only windbreaker over this stuff and be fully protected.
right, and it's obviously different being in Florida. I don't know about you, Crash. What do you have to put on your full winter hazmat suit when you go out for a ride now? What's going on?
Not anymore. I used to live in Washington, and yeah, I absolutely did. I had a big Revit Gore-Tex, two-piece suit that I wore. But I live in San Diego now, so no, I've wore just the other day. It was like 50-something degrees. I put on a one of those what's like a Cycle Gear cold gear or cold whatever the heck they call it, chill out, cold whatever it is, freeze out, some weird catchy name. Anyway, it's a like insulating and windbreaking layer. I put that on underneath my perforated leather jacket and rode to work, and I was fine.
Yeah, well, I mean, here's the other side of it too, Steven, if you think about it, and basically what Crash was mentioning on, as technology advances and materials, become stronger and become multi-purpose, spending that extra money, you're going to get more use out of something that you can wear cold, hot. There's different ways of looking at it. So I just, I have a feeling that some companies out there, they get it, man. They understand styling. They understand what things need to look like, what people enjoy wearing. Some companies do not, and let's face it, there are some ugly helmets out there, some ugly gear. But ultimately, I think it comes down to safety and really, what are you going to use it for? And in my opinion, these days, there are so many people that are quote unquote in the cafe racer scene that are new riders and just think they need to go out and dress all in vintage gear and have a vintage motorcycle. That's short-lived. Once you become an experienced rider and you're actually out there and you're realizing your helmet's leaking or it doesn't fit your head or it's falling apart or your jacket doesn't keep you warm, I mean, you're going to start realizing, hey, comfort and safety are way more important these days,
right,
in my opinion anyway. So.
Right, and there, there's a lot of companies, like you said, there's companies out there that get this scene as well. Like you look at Revit, and they've got a whole line of gear that looks vintage and looks European, but it's fully protective.
Yeah.
The funny thing is too, you'll see. You talked about like the newer riders, and I do think this. I think the cafe racer culture and the genre of motorcycles is really appealing to the young crowd right now. So you see that, we like to make fun of these guys and call them hipsters, but you see the really young guys that are going out and buying the bikes. And some of those guys are the ones that are showing up at bike night with nothing, wearing a pair of goggles or a pair of sunglasses. Mm-hmm. And that's, the kind of the guy that I'll try to, I'm never going to tell a guy what to do or what to wear. But speaking from all the years I had to pick people up off the street, I don't want to see that anymore, especially if it's a friend of mine.
Well, I'll tell you a funny, not to interrupt, but I'll tell you a funny story. So we started the club in 2011, and we all met up for a ride. This is probably about 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago or so. And this guy shows up, never ridden with us before, has a vintage CB. I think it was a 550, and he shows up wearing some slip-on shoes, some shorts, and a T-shirt, and he did have a helmet on. That's one thing I could say. And him and his buddy showed up, and his buddy wore full gear. Well, not full gear, but just jeans, jacket, helmet, gloves, stuff like that, because his buddy had ridden with us before. Well, this guy had not ridden with us before, and I'm not saying that we terrorize the town by any means, but when we ride, we ride. We don't go out for a hit up the town for 15 minutes to be seen. And then we actually go out on the back roads and we actually ride a good 50 to 150 plus miles on a Saturday ride. And needless to say, he made it halfway through the ride and turned around and went home.
Right.
Because he wasn't wearing the proper gear, and I think he realized what he got himself into, and was like, you know what? And I told him, I was like, I don't think that's what you want to wear today, man. But ultimately it also depends on the type of riding you're gonna do. I mean, I tell you, I went down half a block from my house, and I was wearing no gear at all except for a helmet. And I was just down the street and made a dumb move, and I learned real quick what road rash was. And I'm telling you what, man, I will never make that mistake again.
It only takes once, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, that's not fun.
I was going to mention also, I know you mentioned something about a brake, but I was going to mention in regards to the gear, we talked earlier about me bringing up the show that we're doing this year. And as you know, the bike that we built for charity has just turned out to be phenomenal. I actually got a video today of the thing being cranked up and running. It's just coming out phenomenal. But we teamed up with Speed and Strength this year, and they are donating a full set of gear: gloves, helmet, jacket, pants, everything. I even think they're throwing in boots for the person that wins it. So
that's really cool.
Yeah, and it's their Rush Redemption line, which is kind of along the lines of the Cafe Racer vintage style theme, and it's really cool styling gear, and it's also one of those things that we're definitely grateful to have them to be a partner with us. So.
All right, so let's backtrack a little bit for those of the people that don't know what Cafe Moto is and how you kind of mentioned when you got started, but kind of tell us what the impetus was to start this club in Orlando. And just before you start, I'm going to tell you that when I joined Crash on the show, because he'd started this by himself a while ago, I was like bitching and lamenting to him that there was no real Cafe Racer vintage scene in Florida, and boy did that change. So kind of give us a little history on Cafe Moto, where you guys are, what you do, who started it, and what's going on before we talk about the rally.
Well, you said, boy, did that change. First, let me set the record straight. When did you start the podcast?
Well, he started it a while ago. I didn't join until, what was it, a little over a year ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it didn't change. You just didn't look hard enough.
I didn't know about it.
we were here, man, and I'm going to tell you, when I first met you and I heard that you had a Cafe Racer podcast, I was like, man, that's really cool. That the ability to have an online show and really is the essence of who we are and what we do. It just goes to show how big this really is. At the end of the day, you said that you were looking for it, and we obviously have been here for a while, but this thing, I mean, our Instagram account, and I'll get back to the question that you've asked, but our Instagram account just hit a little over 3,000 followers, and that's, in the scheme of things, that's really not that many people, but you would be amazed at how many people in Taiwan and Vietnam and Germany and Australia that follow us and post pictures and tag us. Japan. I mean, this thing is huge, man, and it's so amazing to see how unique we all are, but yet united together. You know what I mean? It's kind of a weird thing because everyone's kind of like trying to set their own trend per se with, and in my opinion, I think, everyone's kind of got their thing, but really we're all the same, and we all have the same ideas, goals, and visions, in my opinion, because for the longest time you had the sport bike riders, and then there were the Harley riders, and that was like the two genres that everyone had to somewhat identify with, and that's why I call us a motley crew, because in the beginning, to get back to your original question, I just wanted a vintage motorcycle, and I thought it would be really cool to ride my motorcycle and wrench on my motorcycle. But I really needed to learn how to ride my motorcycle and wrench on my motorcycle. So I decided to start a club of individuals that were like-minded, just like me, and we could all get together, learn from one another, because there wasn't anything here, and it just blossomed from there. Our first gathering, we had like 15, 20 people. Then our first anniversary ride, after being 1 year, we had 75 riders show up for that. And we started this just to get that motley crew together. All those guys that didn't really fit into those two major genres of motorcycles. We are the misfits for sure. But and I'm not gonna lie to you, man. In the beginning, I was like, no, you've got to, you've got this, I'm vintage only. Well, I had to change. I mean, not only did the culture change me, but we're trying to set it out to where we can change a little bit of the culture as well. And I have opened up big time. And what I thought was a cool motorcycle then, my whole vision of what I like and what I want to ride has completely changed. I mean, I'm, like I said about the gear earlier, right now I have a 1974 CB360 completely. Yeah, you've seen it. I mean, it is just it's a hodgepodge. Well, I wouldn't say a hodgepodge. I mean, it's just definitely, there's not another bike in the world like it. Let's put it that way.
I think eclectic would be a good term to use for it, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely one of a kind. And I have ridden that thing 300 plus miles round trip, and when I'm done, I want to sleep for 5 days. And then my other bike, which is a Ducati 900 SS, I bought that to first of all, my wife said, you can get another bike only if it's German or Italian. I was like, okay. So I picked the Italian one, and it's ballsy, man. Shannon, with Hot Saki Cycles, Shannon Hutcher, it's in his garage right now. We're redoing it, and that's going to be a pretty thing to see, man, by the way. But anyway, and we'll see how that goes. But
did you see the pictures I posted of the SS that Moto Studio in Miami did?
Yeah.
Yeah, that bike was gorgeous.
Yeah, it's really nice. Yeah, this one's hopefully going to be just as nice as that. But again, my style of riding has changed. And yes, the Clubmans are cool to see, but my next bike will not have Clubmans. I'm sorry, it just won't. I actually am really starting to like the sport, tracker style bikes. I really kind of like that, vintage meets modern. I really, new forks, new alloy wheels, beefed up brakes. Let's keep the same motor. Yeah, let's keep the same tank even. But let's change the seat out. It's kind of what suits your style, but.
We were just kind of talking about that because at EICMA, Moto Guzzi released a tracker scrambler kit for the V7s. So they have a kit now you can go out and buy that includes high exhaust, a different fender, a higher handlebars, the whole 9 yards, and transform a V7 into a scrambler look.
Yeah. A lot of guys are doing the scrambler stuff, and I'm digging them, man. I'm digging them. Jason from Dom City was over here last week. We got together, and he's got so many motorcycles and so many. He can build whatever he wants, and he rides his Thruxton that he turned into a scrambler. I mean, he rides that thing like he stole it, man. I mean, he loves it.
And there's a lot to be said about modern classics, and I hate to see any club that would say, now you're not going to be able to bring your Bonneville or your Guzzi or even your new Honda CB 1100 because we just want vintage bikes. When these bikes are the flavor of, what was then.
Well, so, I'll tell you, see, listen, a vintage is our core. Okay, that's where we started. That's where we'll always be. And half the guys that show up on the new bikes love vintage bikes and even probably own a couple. What I mean, and what I've always meant when I started Cafe Moto is it's about the garage builder movement. It is about those guys that come together and do the stuff themselves. You know, it's not we say built not bought, right? It's something they went out and they spent their hard-earned money and they actually, you know, did the work themselves or worked along somebody who did. You know, I mean, I refuse to take my motorcycle to anyone without me sitting next to them and learning it if I don't already know how to do it myself. That's just the way I've always been, and I think that's the key here. So, you know, we started this thing in 2011, and we've got a huge network throughout Florida of individuals that do just that. And man, we've seen some impressive builds over the years, and they continue to come out, and I continue to be impressed. And because of this, last year, I decided to put on our very first motorcycle show, which we named the Revival Rally. And, you know, you ever heard the term fake it till you make it?
Yeah.
Well, I'll put it to you this way, man. I hadn't planned anything, much less a birthday party, in the last, 5 or 10 years, and I just said, you know what? Let's do it. Let's try to get some people together. Everyone. Because here's the thing: we do our motorcycle thing, our bike night, every Thursday in the Milk District. And yes, it's a wonderful thing, but some nights are hit or miss. And I ultimately think we should probably even scale it back and do it just once a month, so we would have more during that one time. But it is what it is at this point. And we have, there are always, that hardcore 10 to 15 guys that will never miss a bike night. It's their, it's their one kitchen pass out of the house. The wife says you can go up. It's their man cave. So for that, it's a wonderful thing. But I really wanted something larger. I'm just that kind of person. I don't just stick at something small. I'm always trying to make things big and out of proportion, which, by the way, as a club we struggled with in the beginning. We had guys that really just didn't want us to team up with bigger name individuals or start spreading the word and
right. Well, there's always people that want to keep it small.
Oh, there and listen, there's nothing wrong with that. But I believe that there's more power in numbers, and there's more power, in change, should I say. So, when we want to do something, we want to do something with charity, we want to do something for an organization, if we get 4 guys together, well, you may not be as impactful as 400 guys or 4,000 guys, So,
Tell me, Brendan, what were the numbers like for the Revival Rally last year?
Last year, I was actually pleasantly surprised. We ended up bringing in probably a little over 1,500 people, and I did it all and I'm not gonna lie, I was a control freak. I did it all myself, and this is not me patting my back. Listen, I was a nervous wreck. It was.
Hey, brother, I got to tell you, man, I got there early in the morning, way earlier than I was supposed to be there, like 9. And Mark McKee showed up a little after me to put the banners up for the Ace, and I think you kind of showed up like around 10:30 or so.
No, I was there before. I had to leave and come back.
Right. I remember you getting in and leaving and come back, and you were frazzled. I was like, but you know what? That thing was phenomenal. We had a great time.
I tried to be like a duck. You know what I mean? It's like calm and cool and collected, and my feet just going 90 miles an hour underneath the water. You never know it, but. That one I could not hide it, my friend. I was frazzled. I tried to take on too much, and ultimately I was just exhausted after it was all said and done. And ultimately, everyone had a great time, and way more people showed up. I mean, we spent about 30 days marketing the event, and way more people showed up than we anticipated. And this year, I really try to loosen the reins and rely on some of the club members, and a lot of people have really stepped up. And We are doing some things a little differently, but for the most part, I've been told we may hit 3,000 people this year. So
I'm really excited about it. So tell us when it is, where it is, give us a lowdown on what the charity is, because we're going to try to drag some more people. We have listeners all over Florida that email us, and I met some of them at AIM, and hopefully we'll get them to come to this too.
Yeah, man. Well, actually, that's the other thing. We had some guys coming down from Alabama last. I mean, some guys came across state lines, which was just amazing. And listen, Ace is coming next year. There's no debating that. We've already been grandfathered in with them, and we will be doing this show next year. They say they're going to be open in March. I hope they're going to be open in March, but I also would like to have a December grand opening event as the Revival Rally. And I don't see why we can't put this thing on a 2-day event with 20,000 plus people, make it like a barber. You know what I mean? I mean, we're centrally located, and to have an anchor flagship company like Ace to be able to do that with, I really think that's possible, and I'm going to do everything I can to get it there. But as of now, obviously where we are now, I'm still very happy with, and I think that this year is going to be great. So if anyone wants any additional information, check out the website. It's www.therevivalrally.com. Again, that's therevivalrally.com. And it'll have some information on there. And then also our Facebook page is Revival Rally. You can look that up. That also has some updates and things that are going on throughout the show. This year for the show, we're going to do the same thing. Scooters and vintage motorcycles, or should I say vintage motorcycles and scooters are going to be on display there. Multiple vendors, and we're also going to have a helmet art show. We've got some of the most amazing, talented local artists that you've ever seen. We're going to be painting some helmets. Bell came on board and donated some helmets. And we're also giving away a custom cafe racer that we've been building as a club coming together. And the proceeds of this are going to go for Canines, to the Canines for Warriors Foundation. They provide service dogs for disabled veterans for post 9/11. So, we're really happy to be able to team up with them, and it's a great cause. So, we're excited about it.
I'll have the website address in the show notes. So if those of you who are listening to this on iTunes, if you click on the information for the show now, the show notes on iTunes are live, and they have direct links. So you can click on a link in the show notes, and it'll take you right to the site and give you information. It'll also be on our web page and on our Facebook page. And I've got some pictures of the bike that I'm going to post as well, too, because the bike is phenomenal. I saw it at the AIM Expo, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And it's a nice, really cool mix of retro with some modern touches to it, and you'll see what I mean when we post that. But there's a little high tech on the bike, isn't there?
Oh man, we got involved with COSO North America, and they contacted us and they said, hey, we'd like to have a bike for display at AIM Expo. I'm like, man, do I have the perfect motorcycle for you? But I'm going to tell you, when I said that we would do that, Stephen, I was looking at a disassembled bike and a parts box. Like, nothing was together, and we had 3.5 weeks. So, granted, it was overtime, that we had to put in, and we got the bike to the show, and it wasn't completely finished, but ultimately it was what it's going to be. And they said that they had the most buzz from that motorcycle at their booth that they've ever had. So we're excited. I mean, that's huge. COSO North America, that's a big company, and they do some phenomenal speedos and some different digital gauges and stuff. And so we've got one of theirs on there. We teamed up with RKXL. They got us some nice wheels and just some phenomenal touches on the bike. And then there's some. Listen, Ross of Trackside Cycles. He and his partner Bobby have put in countless hours on this motorcycle, and you can definitely tell there's been a lot of love put into this bike, and some extremely talented custom fabrication. One-off exhaust, one-off seats, tail loops. I mean, just you name it. And I mean, I haven't seen a charity bike this nice, in a long time. Let's put it that way. So.
They that bike is gonna be. They're gonna announce the winner at the AIM Expo.
Yeah, and
I mean at the Revival Rally.
yes, and I'll just tell you this. I've had multiple emails, people asking me, where can they get raffle tickets. But I'll be the first to tell you, and I've gotten this in an email too, that we do not sell raffle tickets to just anyone that's anywhere. We want them to be at the show, and you must be present to win. You can buy our raffle tickets online right now up until Black Friday. I'm running a deal on them, and then I'm removing that, and then they'll be a little bit higher price day of the show. But ultimately, Stephen, people reach out and says, I want to buy raffle tickets, but I'm not going to be able to come to the show, or they don't live in the state.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we could do that, but I mean, think about it. If I get on stage and I announce the winners from, John from Montana, and no one knows John from Montana, and no one's ever going to see John from Montana win this bike. It just doesn't have that same appeal. We want to see the winner there. We want to call out the name, see the reaction, meet them. We want to know where the bike's going. And ultimately, hey, they could sell it, do whatever they want with it, but ultimately, we really feel that the there it is right there. Yeah, we really feel that that seeing the winner and having them there at the show would be nice just to have.
So you guys see that right now?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a beautiful bike. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, that's a 1970 SL 350. Do you by any chance have the before picture?
No, because you were gonna. No, I don't have it. That was. I don't have that picture. I know what you're talking about, but unfortunately, I don't.
Yeah, I'll email it to you. It is. I'm telling you what, man. It's one of those. It's definitely a big difference. So put it that way.
You really got to see the paint job up close too. The paint's phenomenal. That's just not a white paint. It's like an upside down metal flake, a candy flake paint. It's beautiful. It's got the club logo on it. The seat's phenomenal. It's just done really, really nice. And then the Koso gauge package on there is really cool.
It's got a gold pearl over the top.
Yeah.
I'm really curious about the Koso gauge you ended up using, because obviously I can't see the face of it in this picture, and I wasn't there to see it in person.
I actually might have a picture of it. I'll have to look and see. But go ahead and tell them about it.
Hang on one second. I'm sending
Sure.
you this.
Because I actually just recently replaced the gauge on my my Bonneville because the speedometer and tachometer both broke.
I've got a picture of it. I'll bring up on the screen here in a second.
Okay.
I just have to rotate it. But let me show you this. So Koso makes a bunch of different packages, and they've got one that is a vintage look. Well, I don't want to say that. It's just round. So
yeah.
I'm going to be bringing this up here in a second.
I ended up going with like a pretty, inexpensive analog gauge, and I'm really not 100% happy with it. It looks great, but it's just as wildly inaccurate as the original one, and that bothers me.
Yeah. We went with one called the TNT meter.
Okay.
Now, I actually have another Koso digital speedometer on my personal bike, and we actually.
Oh yeah. Okay. Sorry. I just found it on their website. I was looking at this one.
Yeah. And it's the standard. It's fed by magnets. You put it on, and you run it off of we mounted the magnets in the pickup magnets in the actual brake disc, so it helps us obviously read the speed and stuff. But it's got so many functions. Crash is you talking about oil pressure. I mean, just gas. They are so multifunctional. And with these vintage bikes, I mean, you've got to really know what you're doing to get them all to work. We'll put it to you that way. But
Yeah.
it's all there. It's all there. So you can use whatever you want to use. In this case, the TNT meter it's an extra large tack with a digital speedometer, and it's got your neutral and all those functioning lights and stuff like that. So yeah. Now they've also got some amazing like mini speedometers, or like really like the size of like your thumb almost.
Right.
And we're thinking about next year using one of those and just drilling out the top of insetting the top of a triple clamp, and just kind of laying it flush there.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah, just kind of keep it more of a slim line kind of thing. I don't know. I just think I really want to try that for our next year's bike, see how that goes.
Yeah, I do like this gauge. It looks really good, and that idea of kind of laying it into the top of the triple clamp, I'm definitely I'm a fan of that idea.
Yeah, I think that's going to be cool. So, but yeah, man, we're excited. The show is December the 6th. That's the first Saturday of December, and every year that's when we plan to have the show, on the first Saturday of December. And like I said, last year, man, you couldn't have picked a better day. I don't want to jinx myself, considering that it's nasty and wet outside right now. But we had an amazing day, no rain, beautiful, and we're running the show from 2 p.m. to around 8:30 or 9. And first of all, because we don't like getting up very early. Because that's for work. This isn't work. This is fun. So this even though it is work, but you know what I mean. It's we're out to have a good time. So we really just want to make sure everyone's gets there around 2 o'clock. And if you show up at 8 a.m., unless you're willing to help set up something, please don't show up at 8 a.m. But other than that, man, that's 2 to 9, and we'll be. Dime City has obviously our main title sponsor is Ace Cafe, but Dime City has done the custom. They did the custom trophies for us last year. They're going to do them for us again this year, and we're real excited about that. And so we'll have some motorcycle trophies and scooter trophies to give away, and then a motorcycle and some gear, man. And then we also have some other raffle stuff going on. And by the way, the helmet art show is going to be done as a silent auction, so you will be able to bid on that helmet if you. So you can place that old crappy helmet you just bought. Steven.
I'm gonna be there for sure. I think last year what we tried to accomplish was doing a live broadcast, and the bandwidth from the sandwich bar there wasn't enough for us to get a really clean picture. So I think this year I'm going to be doing video interviews and just talking to people there instead of us trying to do a live broadcast from the show, because the quality wasn't great.
Well, I'm gonna try to team up. I'm gonna try to talk to him. I have a range extender at my house. I don't know if that's gonna help or not. I don't know if that doesn't necessarily increase the bandwidth, but it'll increase the signal, right? Crash, you may know more about that than me, but.
What we might try to do, depending on what Crash's schedule that day is if he initiates, something from his end, and I just do it by phone.
Right.
So because we can do that and do video by phone.
Either way, it'd be nice to see you get some interviews with some of the guys and their bikes and stuff like that. I mean, there's going to be so many different types of motorcycles there. I just had a guy contact me today who does custom metal flake paint work on all kinds of motorcycles. He's going to have a booth out there. Rusted Jalopy, he actually contacted me today. Yeah, if you know that guy, he's from
Marlo, yeah.
Marlo, yeah. It's so funny because he wanted to be in the show last year and couldn't make it happen. And so I knew that, and I didn't have his number or anything. So I sent him a message on Instagram like once or twice because we both follow each other on Instagram. And he never responded. So I'm like, well, heck, man, this guy just doesn't want to be involved. Well, I posted a post today, and he said, what? I didn't know this was going on. Are you kidding me? Is there any way I can come down? So we're excited. We're going to have him. And that guy's got the most amazing booth set up I don't think I've ever seen. He's got like a entire tiki bar, like couch, lounge. I left him a message because I don't know if we're going to be able to fit his entire living room
It's exactly what it is, the living room. And I hung out with him at the Dania Beach Vintage Bike Show, and then he had that same setup at the show for the Vintage Iron Club last year on Clematis Street. And Marlo built some incredible motorcycles too, and a lot of them look like really old. And I don't know if you've ever seen Alex McKenzie's Gucci from Metal 305 in Miami, and it looks like the thing just was found in somebody's yard. And it's got that sidecar on it that Marlo built and everything. It's really cool. He's a great builder, and he's a good wealth of knowledge, and he'd be a great addition to the show too. All right, man. Listen, we're running a little over here, so I think we're going to need to wrap it up. And one more time, Brendan, for the audience, the website address again where they can find out about the show.
Yeah, and by the way, you guys can follow us on Instagram or Twitter. It's at Cafe Moto Club. And then our website is cafemotoclub.com, which will take you also to our show page. But that is therevivalrally.com. Facebook page is Revival Rally. Give it a look, give it a like, share it with all your friends. We're trying to blow the roof off this thing, man. It's December the 6th. From 2 p.m. to 9 p.m. And as always, guys, I really appreciate you having me on. And we'll do this again for sure, man. It's fun.
We will be there for that. Crash, is there anything you want to say, take us out of here?
No, I don't really have anything. You can find us in all the usual places, Facebook, Twitter, Cafe Racer Pod.
Check out our Patreon account, our Patreon page. Again, that's in the show notes. But we appreciate anybody who has been supporting us, all the positive feedback we've gotten.
Yeah, really quick. You keep talking, but I'm going to look up something else. There's one person I need to thank specifically.
Okay. So again, we've gotten positive feedback since we made some audio adjustments, and we did, if you would please, we did a little change on the intro music for the iTunes listeners, and for anyone who's listening through Stitcher or any of the podcast sources, we kind of changed the intro a little bit for you guys. But anyway. Let us know what you think, and Chris, is something you got?
Oh yeah. If you're ready, we got a donation through the PayPal direct donate thing of $25 from a guy named Chris, whose last name I'll leave out in case you're a special operator or something, and you're in the CIA and you don't need your name put out there. But thanks, Chris, for donating the show. If you're not looking to do the Patreon monthly sort of support thing, and you just wanted to throw us a couple of bucks to help us, keep chugging along, you can do that. Just go to the CafeRacerPodcast.com, and there's a button that says support the show.
All right, man. And I don't have anything else. So
I don't either. Get out there and ride.
See you guys.